has written songs we all know by heart and shared her lilting voice with the world. Until now, we didn't know that her music masked her tears, and her honest, inspirational story is told in her new memoir, Singing Lessons. Please help me welcome Judy Collins. Judy.
Hi,
how are you?
Oh, I couldn't be better. What a great show. What a
Isn't
great
it?
audience. Yeah.
Nice to see you.
It's great to see you, too.
I read the book, and I was so touched by it. I called you on the phone, having never met you, which was a little odd. I'd never done that before.
I was in my bedroom, and the phone rang, and you said, "This is Rosie," and I said, "Hi, Mom."
Well, I read the book, and I was very moved by it.
Thank you.
The stuff of your son's suicide and your own depression and struggle with alcoholism, I thought it was so truthful and so from the heart and inspirational as well.
Thank you.
I know it was not the book that you set out to write. Is that true?
Well, it wasn't the book I set out to write. My son was wonderful, as you know. He was 33, and he was healthy, and he was in great shape, and this tragedy happened. At first, I wanted to write a book about suicide and about the taboo, mostly about breaking the taboo,
right,
which I think is an enormous burden to people who have lost family and friends to suicide, and quite often they keep it a secret, and it makes them sick, and it gives them all who knows what. And so I wanted to talk about that, and I started writing meditations, too, every day to get me through that and to get me from the very dark places to the light. And I thought, well, I'll do that. That sounds, you know, like people need that. But, you know, nobody wanted to buy that. It was very interesting. No one really wanted that. And as I worked with it and talked to my editor, he said, why don't you just write a memoir? You know things differently now. It's a different story. So I wound up, of course, writing about my beautiful son and about this issue. And as you said, I have a chapter on survival. I have a chapter on depression called The Black Dog.
Right, which was such a great visual, I think. Excuse me, my bronchitis. With people who suffer from that on any level. I think we all go through it in some capacity. And to say that to ward off the black dog of depression, when the depression you feel like a black dog enters the room, one thing you did was exercise. You forced yourself to move.
Well, you know what it does? It makes endorphins and things like serotonin, and so you get. So I've been a devotee of exercise since I was in my early 20s because I knew I couldn't survive without it. So I wrote about that, I wrote about survival, but then I started to write about the joy in my life. I wrote about my wedding, my marriage to the wonderful man who's my husband, who's here somewhere with us. Did you know he was going to be here today?
I did not know.
Well, he's around. Hi, darling, where are you?
Darling, where are you, darling?
Where are you? Well,
he's probably in the green room in the back. I don't see him anywhere.
He's in the green room, I suppose. Well,
now,
anyway,
how long were you together before you were married?
We've been together 20 years, and we were married 2 years ago.
Now, what took so long, if you don't mind me asking?
We wanted to be extremely sure. We wanted to make sure it would work out, you know, and, you know, by that time we had each other's keys, etc. No, we really have had a wonderful time, and we had a wonderful wedding. And I wrote about that. I wrote about working with UNICEF and going to Bosnia and Vietnam and Macedonia, and I wrote about my singing lessons. I wrote about my visit to the White House. I wrote about how it felt to be on the inside after so many years of marching and being on the outside of the White House, and realized we should all go there. It's our house. It belongs to us. Everybody should make a visit. I'm convinced of that. So I wrote about very joyful things and things that really, you know, when you're in a bad place, Rosie, and the worst thing happens, nothing else can ever be so bad.
Right.
Nothing.
Your son helped you with your own sort of realization of your alcoholism when you were drinking vodka out of a coffee cup early in the morning, and he said to you, Mom, do you realize what time it is?
Yeah, he looked at me. You know, he's tall, redhead, you know, this
very
kid,
handsome
very
boy.
handsome man.
There's a photo of him.
And it was about, oh gosh, maybe even 10 years before that photograph was taken, and he walked into the kitchen, and, you know, we'd always have our coffee and chat in the mornings. And he was in high school. No, he was in college. And he said, Mom, we looked at the cup, you know, the way they do. Yeah. They look at you, and then they look at the... He said, you know what time it is, you know? And just did me, it's just... So it was helpful.
It was really propelled you
very
towards your
helpful.
own sobriety.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
One thing that interested me in the book as well, after your son killed himself, Joan Rivers called you on the phone.
Yes.
A woman who you didn't really know, who, I don't know if
Yeah.
people would necessarily think of her as sort of the warm, loving, somebody to reach out like that. It sort of surprised me in a way and was very touched by that. How did you feel when she phoned you?
I was just blown away. She called me, you know, I was on the floor anyway. It was just shortly after this, and I was planning on canceling my whole life. You know, anything, everything was going to be shut down. And she called me on the phone. I've known Joan for years. You know, I've seen her on shows. We've been on the Today Show, the Tonight Show, the whatever. We've seen each other at clubs. We've seen each other in the street, at functions, all dressed up. You know, but I didn't know her personally. And she called me up and she said, you know, there aren't any guilts in suicide. And she said, if you want to bother concocting some, that's your business. But there aren't any. And so you better get used to it. And she said, besides that, you cannot cancel your life. You have to sing, you have to show up for your life, you have to get up and start breathing in the morning. You have to do what it is that you can do. And although there's not a timetable, of course, she was right, because it was my work that saved me, my singing that saved me, which I talk a lot about in the book. I think singing has brought me through everything in my life, joyful, happy, exciting times, terrible times, and people have written me and told me for years how much the music that I do helps them through difficulties, and I was able to see it firsthand.
And in this book comes with a CD, which is really wonderful. And after I had read the book, I was driving back from my house into the city. I was listening to it, and one song really struck me, Born to the Breed, which was a song you wrote about your son when he was about 16. He had run away from home and was trying to be a musician, and it really sort of had a whole new meaning in light of his death. And I asked if you would sing that song, and you graciously said you would.
I would be delighted to.
After this break, Judy Collins sings. The book is Singing Lessons, and it's a beautiful, beautiful piece. You should go buy it. We'll be right back after this. From the CD, Judy tucks into the back copy of every Singing Lessons book a song she wrote about her son Clark, Born to the Breed.
From what you wanted, you get what you need.
really beautiful. Thank you very
Dolly.
much. Singing Lessons is really a powerful book. We'll be right back after this break.